Hey guys, Pascal here. I joined Hedge and Val on the radio this week, where Val interviewed Hedge about some recent news items. The first was an item on the East Valley School District's Board of Directors agenda, which was included in our February 23rd CIVICS. They held a first reading of a revised board policy that would eliminate the district's Affirmative Action Program. The second was all about the West Plains PFAS crisis. They talked about Hedge's recent article called We Admit It, where after the airport found PFAS in the groundwater, the state is requiring both Spokane County and City to provide affected well owners with safe water. You can find relevant articles, other podcast episodes, and more on our website, rangemedia.co. Thanks for listening, and on to the show. You're listening to KYRS Medical Lake Spokane. This is Free Range, a co-production of KYRS and Range Media. Pascal here, the podcast producer. This is my first time in the KYRS studio. I'm here with Aaron, Hedge, and Val. They're going to talk about a few stories today, and yeah.
Ooh, welcome to the studio, Pascal.
Good to have you here. Nice work on the intro.
Thank you.
Hey, Val. How you doing?
I'm good. So, we're talking about, I don't know if you were around earlier this week, Pascal, when we were talking about the CIVICS and an item that we found that was kind of like alarming immediately. And I was like, whoa, this is weird.
It looks scary.
Yeah, it looks scary. But basically, this was East Valley School District, which is in Spokane Valley. It is one of three. This is a big point for me. My Roman Empire is, why is there three school districts in Spokane Valley? But anyways, I digress.
There's East, Central, and West Valley school districts in Spokane Valley.
And that's in addition to like Meade and Spokane. Anyways, sorry. Still my Roman Empire. So East Valley School District, we were looking over their board meeting agendas as we do every week. We look through all of the municipal meeting agendas and pull out items that we think people might care about. And one of those items for this week's meeting was a policy update to the non-discrimination and affirmative action policy of East Valley School District. And the change was cutting the entire affirmative action section of the non-discrimination and affirmative action policy. The specific changes for this policy, like when you're looking at it, I think a lot of people like think of affirmative action and they think like DEI, or it's been like equated with like DEI stuff in a like negative derogatory way, even though it's like not, and not that DEI is negative in any way, but affirmative action. But this policy specified that like women and men would be paid the same amount of money if, for, similar qualifications and
we could read it.
Oh yeah. You can read it. You just pulled it up.
So this is the language that they were
I was riffing.
Yeah. So it's just the East Valley's affirmative action policy, and I think many school districts have something similar to this in their non-discrimination policy, and it just reads. It's kind of long, so bear with me. The district will develop an affirmative action employment plan or program that includes appropriate provisions designed to eliminate discrimination based on protected status. Regarding sex discrimination, the district's affirmative action employment plan or program must include the requirements to maintain credential requirements for all personnel without regard to sex, make no differentiation in pay scale based on sex, make no differentiation in the assignment of school duties based on sex, except where an assignment would involve duty areas or situations such as but not limited to a shower room where persons might be disrobed. Provide the same opportunities for advancement for males and females, and make no differentiation in conditions of employment based on sex, including but not limited to hiring practices, leaves of absence, hours of employment, and assignment of or payment for instructional or non-instructional duties. So that's the language. It's basically saying like we're going to treat everybody the same regardless of their sex or gender identity. And there was that language in the policy when we opened it up had big bright red lines through all of it, meaning that they were discussing cutting it. And it was a first read, but we were like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And it's just kind of alarming to see like, that kind of language. And to be fair, like school districts and just the local school boards, they're updating their policies like almost every week. And I think they have to go through them like at a certain interval or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how it's brought up, but they're always updating policies. And so we particularly pay attention to policies related to like equity and inclusion and diversity and like library materials and things like that, like, kind of those hot button issues.
And it applies to pretty much every public body. Like we're also really focused on like kind of the rules of engagement for public bodies. I know our colleague Aaron Sellers is kind of like has been in the thick of changes to the city council rules. I think those were codified last week, so they kind of got out of that morass.
No, they were not.
Oh, they weren't?
Yeah, they were going to be, but they decided to not defer or like not suspend the rules or whatever and like vote on it last week. So if you have thoughts and feelings about city council rules of procedure for Spokane City, like how long you'll have to speak to your representatives, look at our civics.
But these are just like they're regular policy updates that every public body like examines every year. And we, there are some procedural ones, but there's also just like policies that we're really concerned about, and our readership is really concerned about dealing with equity in the workplace. And this is one of them. Yeah.
So we saw that and we were like, wow, that's weird. And as we do with civics, we wrote it up as we see it and our understanding of it as we see it, because the public has the same access to the agendas as we do. And also we're trying to get it out as soon as possible. So then I was like, hey, just look at, and you were like, do I need to look into this? Like, because there was a few other policies that were kind of for the other school districts that were also taking out some like non-discrimination language from things like from their policies, and that were kind of also, they weren't as like, black and white as this one, because some of them don't like track changes in their things. They just kind of like, they're like, spot the difference. So yeah, this one was kind of stark. And so you were looking into it, and how did you look into it, and what did you find?
Well, first I wanted to talk to a union rep to see, like, I mean, because this is like, this is equity and employment rather than enrollment. So I contacted the state, the Washington Education Association, which is the union that represents school districts throughout the state. Every local school district has a local branch of that, and they didn't know about this particular instance. There are hundreds of school districts in the state of Washington. They can't pay attention to every one. But
read our civics.
But they're familiar with the idea that like school districts across the state, especially fairly rural ones, and to be clear, like and I don't know a whole lot about the East Valley School District, but what I understand from folks who are kind of on the ground out there out east is that this school district board is like pretty progressive. They're like and they have the best interests of their employees at heart. That's just kind of like the vibe that I get from talking to people. But yeah, the state level union didn't know that this was happening. But they said, like there are school districts throughout the state that are, tamping down language about equity and DEI, and obviously, we can't miss the national context here. Like we have a presidential administration in the United States that is on the warpath for programs like this. Like they want to get rid of anything that smells of equity. Like they do not want public bodies, but also like, you know, private corporations, like having policies that are designed to level playing fields for demographics that have historically been marginalized. And so that was just kind of like, yeah, you know, of course this kind of thing is happening everywhere. And so that's what the state level unions told me. They couldn't comment on this specifically, so they wanted to connect me with some folks on the ground. That never ended up happening. I found, like, and it's kind of hard to navigate the union leadership in the local districts, because most of those folks are just like, their union duties are kind of on top of their employment. They're mostly just like teachers or like even like custodial staff or like coaches who work for the school district, just average folks who have normal jobs, and then their union duties are on top of that. And so like they don't have time to like pay super close attention to their public facing, like just like things as basic as like contact information. Wow. So you have to figure out like through public documents like who is currently the president or the co-president of a local union. So I found some of those folks and reached out to them, and I was trying to run it down quickly, and you know, everybody was teaching in the middle of the day, so I didn't hear back for a couple of days. But I did get a hold of one of the directors, and his name is Mike Bly. He's on the East Valley School District Board of Directors, and he told me that. He's one of the
directors.
Yeah,
okay.
He's a director on the board. Okay. Yeah, and he said, I called all of them, and obviously those are normal people who have jobs in there, like, and usually they're not like in the school district, so they have like just like normal duties outside of. Or these are like volunteer positions, right? Yeah. And so, but he answered the phone and he told me that that striking this policy was trying to bring East Valley's non-discrimination policy in line with the model policy that's developed by an organization called the Washington State School District Association, or WASDA, and they basically like they do lots of things. They have like annual meetings where school board directors get together and like talk about, you know, how they're supposed to run their school districts and, you know, what best practices are. And they also develop like policy that the local districts can like kind of crib out of. They don't have to. It's just like, this is a model policy that you can follow. And like, it's what we believe works best. And he said, the reason that, and this particular change like had been changed in WASDA's model policy. He said that it was, in response to Supreme Court decisions, and there have been Supreme Court decisions in recent years, but those kind of address affirmative action in colleges, which is different, and that's mostly dealing with enrollment. So it took me a little while to track it down, but working with the state level WASDA, their public affairs people told me that. That they're striking this language from their model policy in direct response to President Trump's executive orders dealing with affirmative action and DEI. Wow. Basically, they don't want language in their policies that is gonna like kind of attract like the eye of Mordor
on their back.
Yeah, basically, because like these school districts, they depend a lot on federal funding. Yeah, that often it comes through the state, but if it's been a big deal in the news. The president has been coming after corporations local governments, county governments, state governments that are doing things that he doesn't like. So, for example, like anything that has an element of like Black history in it, he wants to pull federal funding from that.
Yeah.
So if you have, and affirmative action kind of falls into the same like philosophical bucket, right? So like the contention is like, if we keep this language, like we run the risk of losing federal funding. And so, this is like language that is being stricken in response to the federal posture toward any type of like equal rights policy.
And I do have a question. So the language that you said initially was like, that's what they had already, and they're striking it, like taking it out. Did they mention anything about like gender identity, or just like the sex assigned at birth?
So this policy deals specifically with sex.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how that would how that interacts with gender identity specifically, but they and that's a really good question, because they moved the spirit of this language into another non-discrimination policy that the school district had, and that actually, the new language that they inserted into the other policy, and we had a small debate about this in the CIVICS marginalia, was actually expanding rights for folks, including rights based on gender identity and sex. And so they actually have like kind of a, like in spirit, it's a more expansive policy. I talked to a union rep. I finally got a hold of a union rep in East Valley, a local one, who told me that like this, it looks like we're cutting affirmative action, but we've just moved it into this other like kind of like bucket of policy, and nothing's actually going to materially change on the ground.
So what policy did they move it to? Because I tried to find like in the agenda, I was like, because I thought like, okay, maybe they are just moving into a different policy. That happens too. And I couldn't find it in the same agenda. I might have missed it, but it also might have just happened like in previous weeks.
It did happen in previous weeks, but it was a policy that was addressed in the same agenda. It was that 5011 policy. And that's kind of like what we were talking about, like expanding.
I feel like they should note that in their agendas.
Well, and
just a small note, like, Sally.
Well, and I don't think they're trying to be super.
Apparently,
I don't think they want this to be super public, because and they're not trying to like hide things, but they don't want to be loud about it, because like they're kind of trying to be a little sneaky to get around the executive orders,
Yeah, and I get that, but like if the argument is that like they don't want to draw the attention of the Trump administration or the federal government, but the language has functionally moved to a different policy, like it's still there, and what makes them think that the other policy isn't going to attract the attention, out of curiosity?
Well, I mean, like I don't think they have to record it somewhere, right? And you do have to do a little bit of digging, like which is the kind of digging that we do every Sunday and Monday morning. To learn that. And so if you're not really paying attention to this stuff, you're not going to notice that. And I don't think,
to answer my own question, sorry, I think like maybe like just changing their non-discrimination and affirmative action policy to just non-discrimination, and then like sticking the affirmative action in a different policy that is called, how we hire policy, and like that would make sense, I guess, if because it was like in the title. That's why I was like, you can't just take out half the title.
It's a very similar thing to what university like if a university has an office of diversity, equity, and inclusion, they change it to like an office of culture or something like that, to remove the hot button term that's really kind of like stoked the eye, like while keeping the spirit of the program. And it's like
progressives like biggest advantage is that the Trump administration does not own a thesaurus or know how to use one.
Well, that's the interesting thing is like a lot of this stuff is a lot, and this is like on the federal level, obviously these types of things wouldn't touch local governments, but like one of the things that they were trying to do was get rid of, just like certain terms in federal policy, and it would be like they would try to get rid of it through like AI programs, and so it would delete specific words, and it would like I don't know, like transgender, like getting rid of that term, like would get rid of every mention of the term transgender in a federal policy or in a public facing document. But it doesn't like there are other ways to say that, and so like the actual like Boolean search function that they use to do that like doesn't get rid of everything.
That's so amazing.
Pretty haphazard. I mean, it's like to me it's designed to intimidate people. And it's like kind of just like it's more posture than it is like it does have a real world effect, but it it doesn't like there are ways around it. I guess.
So TLDR, East Valley School District is not getting rid of their affirmative action practices. It's just in a different policy.
Yes.
And we're going to write that up in wide range in our Friday newsletter, and also add a note into this week's CIVICS tomorrow, so that everyone can know that and not be scared, because we don't want to freak people out.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see something like that and be freaked out about it. I mean, we were, and I think that's part of the point of what's happening in the United States is like doing those things like has all these like ripple effects that affect people's psychology, I guess, and their mental health. But yeah, the school district, and on top of that, like the school district is required by state law to treat its workers in an equal way. So it's like it wouldn't, even if it was trying to get rid of affirmative action, like it couldn't do it, in an actual way.
Cool. So what is the other thing that you were talking about, or not talking about, reporting about in the last week or so is with PFAS? So
there have been some really interesting developments around the forever chemicals contamination in the West Plains. Just to kind of, if you're not familiar with this, the two airports out in Airway Heights, the Fairchild Air Force Base and the Spokane International Airport, they both discovered forever chemicals in their test wells in 2017. Forever chemicals are known as per or polyfluoroalkyl chemicals.
Wow, that was a really good pronunciation. Good job.
Or substances, and otherwise known as PFAS. That's the acronym for it. And they're a big deal in the news. They have been for a few years right now.
They're because in your nonstick pans, in water bottles sometimes. I'm trying to think of normal things.
Name anything with plastic.
Yeah.
Or that it like has any kind of like water repellent quality, like it's gonna have PFAS in it. It's a class of chemicals. There are thousands of different kinds of them, but the idea of what they do is they repel water. So they
also repel health.
Well, the reason that they're so effective is because they're extremely resilient. It's called a long carbon chain, I guess it's a form of plastic, and it's a really big molecule, so it accumulates really easily. It's not easily like shed out of environments. So like if you ingest it, it's not going to be flushed out of your body for a very long time. It biodegrades very, very slowly, and that's the problem with it. And so when it starts to change your body chemistry, and it's thought to be like it's increasingly thought to be linked to a large number of really nasty chronic diseases, including several deadly forms of cancer. There are a number of birth defects that are associated with it. Like it can cause, all kinds of like just like serious problems for people. And it's the active ingredient in this this compound that the airports were federally required to use on their tarmacs. They were required to keep it. It's really good at putting out jet fuel fires. It's called aqueous film forming foam. It's basically just this liquid that when you spray it, it like foams up and it creates a barrier between the fuel and the flame, and so it extinguishes the jet fuel fire in a way that pretty much nothing else can. There were alternatives to it, but like nothing worked as well as the really toxic kind. So it worked really well at this, but the unfortunate side effect is like, if it gets into your body, like it can cause serious problems. And both the Fairchild Air Force Base and Spokane International Airport had used this stuff on their tarmacs, and they would wash it off into the soil after testing it. This was during a time when like the general public didn't really know that it was like potentially toxic to human health. The manufacturers knew because they had studied it, but they didn't let the public know. They knew about the toxicity of it like as early as like the late 1960s.
Wow.
And so we didn't know about it for many decades while the corporate. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty classic like Aaron Brockovich style.
We're
story.
sitting here with Aaron Brockovich. Sorry, that's my favorite joke ever.
It's a beautiful joke.
Thank you.
It doubles as a compliment.
Yeah. Like, Aaron Brockovich, like that. Oh, have you ever seen the 1990s movie titled Aaron Brockovich starring Julia Roberts?
No.
You should.
I'll add it to my watch list of many.
It's a masterpiece.
It'll bring you right up to speed on like how these types of like chemical cover-ups work. It's a really interesting story. It's a true story based on a real person named Aaron Brockovich who But
sorry, that movie was like a key part of my childhood for some reason. I don't know why. My mom really liked it.
If you want to understand like how just like the incentives in capitalism to cover up like human health hazards and public health hazards, that's a good movie to check out.
Okay.
I'm not telling anybody to do it. I'm just saying it's the information is there.
But TLDR, Erin Brockovich is she was like a lawyer's assistant who like uncovered
she was a small time paralegal and she and now she like kind of jet set. She doesn't jet set, that makes it sound fancy. She's an activist and she works really hard to bring justice to communities that have been that are kind of beset with these kinds of chemical spills.
So it's kind of like a way to kind of understand, like in a fiction way, it's a story. It's a story. Okay,
that you can like. It's easy to grab onto.
And I have no idea actually that much about Erin Brockovich, the real person. Like, I mean, not no idea, but like how much of her personal life is accurate in that movie. But Julia Roberts is amazing in it, I think. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So
thanks for explaining that.
there was this contamination, and there are all of these households out in the kind of the rural areas between Spokane and Airway Heights. It's a portion of what we call the West Plains. And so we kind of call it the West Plains PFAS crisis. That's kind of like the shorthand for it. The aquifers were contaminated with this stuff. And Airway Heights itself, like the people who live in Airway Heights, like they were on municipal water, which was contaminated, but they were able to easily switch over to water from Spokane. So they're now on Spokane municipal water. So the residents of Airway Heights itself, like they get municipal water. But the people who live out in the rural like areas, many of them have private wells that are not regulated by any agency. Like it's just kind of like this black hole that of a like water source that isn't that, like nobody's in charge of like making sure that water is clean.
That's kind of crazy.
And so and they use this water for everything. Like some of them have like large gardens or even small farms. They have like there's a lot of people out there with livestock.
I think there was like a cannabis farm out there too. That like either had to shut down or is possibly making cannabis PFAS cannabis. I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of agriculture out there, and like all of the water comes from down underneath, you know, and that's where the water is contaminated. So that's kind of like setting the table for the news that happened. Mm-hmm. So I guess I do have to do a little bit more setup. So there's a distinction between the way that Fairchild and SIA acted. So like Fairchild immediately disclosed its contamination to the public.
In
as soon
2017?
In 2017 when it found it. And it stood up this kind of like, it was limited, but it was limited geographically, but it was a water provision program where they would deliver water to people who were affected, or it would install a filter cap on their well. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of problems with that program, but it was something. Mm-hmm. SIA, in contrast, like when they found their test results contained that their test wells contained PFAS, they didn't tell anybody about it. Mm-hmm. So there's this entire other plume of PFAS contamination that like was basically covered up. And the airport maintains to this day that it is not responsible for any of the contamination, or you know, if they get close enough to it, it's a minuscule amount of the contamination, and they're subject to this like state mandated process called the Model Toxic Control Act, or MOTCA, the MOTCA process, and it's basically like the State Department of Ecology is like making them clean that contamination up according to this process, but they and they're complying with that, but they maintain that they didn't do any of the contamination, and that's probably for legal reasons. I think they want to like you just maintain the ability to like bring lawsuits against you know, federal regulators and things like that in the future.
Are they thinking about bringing lawsuits to the manufacturers that have known about this stuff?
There are a number of, well, so the federal aviation, this is another like this is another rabbit hole.
Whoops.
There are a number of class action lawsuits against the chemical manufacturers that made these chemicals. If SIA were to sue, I would think that they would probably sue the Federal Aviation Administration, because that's the agency that forced them to use this product.
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of important to note that, like, I asked you this a while ago, that like the contamination happened from like just practicing with this stuff. Like, what was it ever actually used on jet fuel fires in this span of time, or has this all just been like, we're spraying foam for funsies and we can't use something non-toxic right now because we have to use the real deal? Like, I don't know.
Well, they were never spraying it for funsies.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's not fun.
Yeah, like it was always in like testing environments, like making sure that their equipment worked.
Okay.
And
I guess
but no, there were never actually any like jet fuel fires that they had to put up. Okay, so that's a lot of scaffolding. Before we move into the kind of like meat of the news, we have to play our underwriting message. Yeah. So I'm going to cue that up.
We're just going to leave you in suspense right now.
That's right. Yeah, it's effective programming. Yeah. All right, let me see if I can do this correctly.
Okay. And we're back.
Hello.
All right. So where we left off.
Very suspenseful. What is the news on PFAS this week?
So these folks out there on the West Plains, they've been living with this contamination for years now. Some of them do have filters on their wells. Some of them do have clean water being delivered to them. But up until now, there's really been nobody who's been like kind of named as a responsible party to actually like deliver water to these people. The airport has been labeled they call it a potentially liable person, or a PLP. That's the legal term for people who are, or entities that are responsible for a cleanup. In the last several months, I guess probably like almost a year ago, actually, the State Department of Ecology also named the city of Spokane and Spokane County as additional PLPs in the cleanup. And the reason they did that is because the city and the county they jointly own the airport, and the airport is its governing board is made up partly of top level officials from the governments of Spokane County and the city of Spokane. So the idea is that like that's kind of like the highest level of ownership of the airport, and so these governments are responsible for this cleanup. So they were brought into the actual like MODCA cleanup process, and they're jointly responsible now with the airport to clean up the PFAS. They're still figuring that out. The actual cleanup is going to take at least a decade, probably a lot longer. They don't really have any good established ways of cleaning this stuff up. It's a really intractable problem.
Maybe the manufacturers would know. Sorry, I'm really salty about this.
There's a lot of university level like academic research being put into like how there are ways to like isolate it from the soil and destroy it, but it's not really scalable yet. In the meantime, these people need clean water.
Right.
A lot of them can't sell their house and move because their property value is destroyed because their well is contaminated. So it's not like they can just pull up stakes and get out of there, you know? So they need clean water. And so I think it was on February 19th. Yeah, it was my birthday. We published a piece about,
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I mean, it was really good news for folks on the West Plains. The Department of Ecology ordered the airport and the county and the city to start delivering. They either have to deliver bottled water or they have to provide every household that has a contaminated well with a filter in their home. And these programs are voluntary. Like you don't have to get this water delivered. Some people might opt out. Like there's a lot of folks out there who, they moved out there to be away from any government influence and they don't really want any part of that.
I want my house.
There's some people who would rather drink the contaminated water, have said that. But the point is like, there are two governments now who are responsible for delivering clean water to these people. And that's been in the works for a very long time. There's one of the reasons that we know about this crisis is through the work of a bunch of activists out on the West Plains, many of whom don't want to be named, but there's this one guy, his name is John Hancock. He when he realized that his neighbors were affected by this crisis, he started this organization called the West Plains Water Coalition, and they've been like really aggressively advocating for getting some remedy to this problem for years now. And John told me that it feels like a dream come true for him that this water is being delivered. We should note that these water programs that the county and the city are going to have to stand up, and to be clear, we don't know what form that's going to take. They have to coordinate that among themselves. So it's still really early in that process. I think the Department of Ecology wants them to start like getting people water kind of like mid or late next month.
Okay.
So it's like they're trying to do it quickly. But we need to be clear that like these solutions are not going to replace like irrigation or like any type of like agricultural use for the water. Like we said earlier, a lot of these people have livestock. A lot of them have like pretty elaborate like food production on their property. That's not going to be addressed by this problem or by these programs. And
Do we know, like, scientifically that, like, if PFAS will, like, if a tomato plant is watered by PFAS water, if how the tomato has PFAS in it?
Yeah. So it's a process, it's a scientific process called uptake. So like yes, the plants drink the water, and some plants will drink the PFAS along with it, and it will end up in the food, often at higher concentrations than it is in the water. The concentration is often like amplified when you like transfer, and it amplifies again when you eat the food.
Oh no!
In your body. So it's a really like heartbreaking thing. I know a woman. Her name is Marcy Zambrisky. She her husband actually like. He passed away from cancer. Her mother-in-law passed away from cancer, and 2 of her dogs died of cancer. We have no way of knowing if any of those diseases were from the PFAS. That's one of the really confounding things about an environmental crisis like this.
It's just a coincidence, maybe.
But there's like a lot of people believe that there's higher rates of cancer out there, and we also have to say that the State Department of Health has not identified a cancer cluster out there. They've done studies, but a lot of folks out there feel like the studies have been inadequate. But Marcy, who does attribute her husband's death, I think, to this crisis. She had a really nice garden, and she made like all kinds of things from her garden. She made jam, she made like salsa, she made like lots of fresh vegetables, and she fed a lot of this food to her grandkids for a long period of time. And there's no way to kind of take that back, and there's also no way for so even if these folks do get clean water, which would be a big win, it's still going to be unsafe or potentially unsafe for them to eat from their gardens and like harvest their livestock. And
so messed up.
Yeah,
man.
Like there's still effects going on even after. Hopefully they would get like the clean water. Like, is that what you mean?
So the way it works is like. So like they'll irrigate from their private well, which is just like there'll be a well cap, and they draw the water out of that, and they use it like some of the water is piped into the home, and some of it is piped to their garden. The filters that the county and the city would install in their homes would be under the sink, so it's after the well cap, right? So
it's not for the garden at all.
Yeah,
or like it can't be.
Yeah, and they're just like there aren't really.
Wait, I thought you mentioned earlier that there are some filters that can be put on the well caps. Is that true or no?
I think they're being developed.
Okay.
I think and the technology is scalable, but like once you get it up to that scale, it's very, very expensive.
Right.
The ones that the Air Force installs on people's wells, they actually install it on the well cap. And I've seen a number of them. It's this big shed. It's like, I guess it's not a huge shed. It's like imagine your average like kind of prefab tough shed, right?
Okay.
It's a like a pretty significant structure, and there are 3 like cylinders inside of the shed, and they're about as tall as I am. I'm about 6 feet tall. And they're filled with carbon, and the water like travels through that, and it gets cleaned through the carbon in the filters. Even those really big ones, the ones that are like taller than me, like those aren't enough for somebody's garden. Okay. Like that's just for home use.
I see.
To make a filter that would like feed a large scale agricultural operation, like. I don't know how big that would be. I do think they exist, but I've never seen one, and I think it would be prohibitively expensive. Yeah. Like they're spending the county is spending. They want to spend $20 million a year getting people filters that are just for their sinks.
Wow.
And so to like scale it up to the level of like agricultural operations is just. At this point in time is kind of just like financially is not feasible.
Sorry, so with the sink filters, like, is it just the kitchen sink, or like, so you wouldn't be able to drink from your bathroom sink?
Actually, that's a good question. It's called a point of use filter. So I think it's for the entire home, but I'm not. It also depends on the site. So like. Another wrinkle in this that makes it more complicated is every single home sits on top of water that is like unique in its chemistry. So like all of the filters have to be specifically designed for that site. So they have to have an engineer come out and test the water at every single site and say these are the minerals in your water, and we have to design a filter that will accommodate these minerals, right? And it's a special design for every single one.
And they're starting that, or you said their goal was in the next month or month and a half to get people these filters?
To have a plan.
To have a plan. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's going to take more time for people to even like get someone to come out to their house and then even get like a filter. So it'll take a while.
Yes. Like if they don't have, if somebody can't get a filter right away, I think the idea is that they'll start sending people like bottled water in the interim. But yeah, the filters will take a while. But yeah, it's a really
about how many households is this affected?
It's several hundred. There's thousands of wells.
Okay.
And we're not like, we don't fully know the complete number. There are still a lot of people out there who don't even know about the contamination. Like a lot of these people are, they moved out there to be away from everything. They don't pay attention to what's happening. But yeah, it's thousands of people that are affected by this.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so do you want to spend the last few minutes talking about your thing, or is it going to be way too long? Should we just keep riffing on this?
Can we dive into that? I do want to talk a little bit more about PFAS. I think maybe we'll save the other topic for a future show.
Yeah.
I think like one of the things that I feel kind of bad as a reporter because I haven't spent as much. When I initially got into this story, I was spending, like every day I would drive around on the West Plains, like knocking on people's doors and talking to them about their situation.
Doing an Aaron Brock Hedge.
Just getting to know these folks. And it's a really big area. It's really like geologically complex. It's beautiful. I haven't spent. It's been a while since I've been out there, just because in the last year, as everybody at Range knows, we've had to scramble to do stories that are like completely separated from that. A lot of them focused on the local actions of the new federal government. So we've been kind of like distracted in a lot of ways. But since John Hancock stood up the West Plains Water Coalition. He's been hosting these meetings out in Airway Heights. They're always at the hub, and you can see where the meetings are on the West Plains Water Coalition website. If you just Google that, you would be brought to the place where those meetings are listed. There was a meeting this week. I didn't go to it. It was last night, and it was just like that. That was an informational meeting where officials from the Department of Ecology just kind of like met with West Plains residents and explained to them what this new water provision program, just the details of it. But these meetings have been happening for 3 years, and there's a couple of things that I just like observations that I want to talk about. One of them is just like every single meeting that I went to, and I went to a lot of them, there would be several people who would show, and there was usually between 75 and 150 people at these meetings. There would be several people who found out about the contamination the night before and didn't know whether their well was contaminated or not, and just came to the meeting not knowing really anything, having never heard of PFAS before. And they come in and they start at, like, there's always a question and answer session at the end, and they'll go up and, like, having this like pretty scary piece of news been articulated to them. They would ask questions, and there's a team from the Department of Ecology, just of people, Erica Bresevoy, Bree Brinkman, Nick Acklam, Jeremy Schmidt, just like a number of people. And they worked really closely with officials from the Environmental Protection Agency. And these kind of they're like, some of them are scientists, some of them are just like public affairs, but they're just public servants. Mm-hmm. They work for the Department of Ecology. They stand up there on the stage and they look at these people and they say, you have to stop drinking your water right now, otherwise you risk like serious health complications from it. And they're like, well, how do I do that? And they're like, we recommend going and buying a filter. There's not, and this was often before there were even programs to install filters on in people's homes. And they would be really angry. I can imagine finding out about this and being angry. And the public face that they see up there are these government officials who didn't play any part in the contamination, and they have to field these questions. And I think that it's worth mentioning that those people, they bend over backwards to do the best they it's a really intractable situation. They can't solve these people's problems, but they're up there at least answering the questions. At the same time that officials from the airport, who John spends a lot of time emailing with, inviting them to these meetings, they don't show up. The people who did the contamination don't show up to these public meetings.
It's messed up.
They don't go and face the public. I should say that Fairchild Air Force Base has its own federally mandated board. It's called RAB, and they've been meeting since they discovered the contamination, but those meetings are a lot more controlled, and it's just this board of people that kind of make decisions, and they don't receive a lot of public input from it. Sometimes they do, but it's a lot less democratic than the West Plains Water Coalition meetings. But these people, these folks that those of us who live kind of in the city limits and we have access to clean drinking water, we don't see these folks. And it was always really striking to me, going there and realizing that there's this whole world out there, and this huge, really important and kind of scary problem that I would never have heard about unless Luke had assigned me to go talk to John Hancock. And yeah, I mean, if, to access that, anybody can go on the West Plains Water Coalition website and look at the meetings. The Department of Ecology maintains a website dedicated to this contamination. And they often carry information about the meetings, but yeah, it's a huge ongoing problem. Really good developments in it this week, but there's still a lot going on, and we'll keep covering it as we can. But yeah, it's a really big problem.
Yeah. Well, it's about our time this week. Hedge is gonna play us out.
Free Range is a weekly news and public affairs program presented by Range Media and produced by Range Media and KYRS Community Radio, KYRS Medical Aid Spokane.